What's up, everybody? It's your girl AP and welcome to my channel. If you are new to my channel, I want to say hello and welcome. If you are a subscriber already and you come back video after video, I just want to say that I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart. So I teach women, millennial women, how to break the cycle of living paycheck to paycheck while rocking out their budget so that they can live a life of financial abundance. So my channel is all about lifestyle, motivation, and money. So if any three of those topics appeal to you, you've got the right channel. So in this video, I wanted to talk about emergency funds. Yes, ladies, do you have one? If you do not have an emergency fund, I want you to stay tuned in this video and listen to the end because I want to talk about three different things. How I save for my emergency fund, what my emergency fund is used for, and what my emergency fund is not used for. So go grab a pen and paper and take some notes. Let's dive right in. So your first question may be, Adrienne, like, what is an emergency fund? Basically, an emergency fund, it is not an investment account. I was just watching one of my girls' videos and she said that, and I was like, yes, that's valuable information because it is not an investment account. It is nothing that really grows per se. Now, I did do a video on, I have 9 different bank accounts. One of those bank accounts does hold my emergency savings account. It's in Ally, and it's a living, I call it just my living expenses account. I do have, now that's the one I put the bulk of my money in. I do have a separate one in my savings account that's connected to my bank. And that I try to keep like $1,000. Sometimes it's a little less depending on what's going on, but my 6 month to 1 year living expenses, that emergency fund, that's in an online high yielding account. Now the interest rate on that, it has gone down since I've had it, but it's still better than putting my money into just a regular savings account. So let's start with how much, how do I even start to save in my emergency fund? Well, I began to just save what I could, and that's what I want to encourage you to do. There doesn't have to be a certain amount that you save, you know, from jump, but whatever you can contribute after you've paid all of your bills, your set expenses are paid, then you can put a little bit into your savings account. Now, one thing that people get caught up on is trying to keep up with the Joneses. You see people on social media and they're just saving, and you're like, well, I don't have that much to save, and that is okay. Save where you are, even if it's like contributing $10 to $25 per paycheck. Start where you are, but the thing is, you have to start. So for me, that's what I did. When I first began my emergency fund, I saved $1,000 because I took the Dave Ramsey course, and he, you know, encouraged people to save $1,000, and so I did that. And then, can you believe, my car had an issue. I needed a new gas pump, and lo and behold, guess how much the gas pump cost? Yes, my $1,000. So yes, that broke my entire heart when I had to just hand over my $1,000 that, in my opinion, I like worked really hard to save. But in hindsight, it's good that I even had the money, because previously, if I didn't have the money, guess what I was doing? Like many of you, I was going straight to the credit card, and I knew I wouldn't be able to pay that off, you know, at the end of the month. So I'm glad that I did have the cash. And you know, it was crazy because I was holding the money and I was trying to give it to him, and he was holding the money and I'm pulling back, you know, because that was like a big accomplishment for me to save that amount of money. But I gave the man my money and I got my oil, you know, pump fixed and whatnot. And so I had to start that journey all over again. So I began to contribute how much I could per paycheck. Being a single mom, you really have to, you know, figure out what you have going on, especially with kids. Kids always need something. It's always going on with kids, but that's more of enough reason that you should have an emergency fund. So I contributed as much as I could, and then I boosted it up to trying to contribute 10% of my paycheck every time I get paid. So that is a big stretch for a lot of people to do 10%, but I look at it as in my budget line, paying yourself. So that 10%, it goes into my online account, and then some other things that help to contribute with my emergency fund. I did get some stimulus checks, and then I did get a tax return. So outside of like buying kids some new clothes because they're growing like weeds, I did put majority of the money into my living expenses emergency fund. For me, I've been broke before and having to ask people for money, and I don't ever want to go, you know, back to that place again if I don't have to. So the best way to, you know, help me to do that is to save as much as I can. So those are some ways that I, you know, save toward my emergency fund. And also, if you've watched any of my previous videos, I'm doing 6 different money challenges for the year 2021, and so that money will also eventually go into my living expenses fund, my emergency fund. So those are ways that I contribute to my emergency fund. So hopefully those ways encourage you as well, and that you can contribute a little bit, you know, or a lot depending on your situation, into your emergency fund. All right, next let's talk about what my emergency fund is not used for. Now, I have sinking funds. So being that I've been in the game of budgeting and using cash envelopes and kind of knowing my expenses, because I track, you know, my expenses, I know what kind of money I need. I have a vehicle, I don't have a car note, so I don't have like extended warranty. So that's one thing I do. I have a sinking funds for like everything, because you're just not gonna catch me slipping. But my emergency fund, because I have so many sinking funds, I don't use my emergency fund for like clothes, like back to school. To me, back to school is not an emergency. Like, you know, it's coming around August, September. So that is something that you need to plan for. My emergency fund is not used for any Christmas expenses. You know, just like back to school, Christmas comes the same time every year. That is not an emergency. Even for me, even like car maintenance, because I have a sinking fund for my car, I don't use my emergency savings for any car maintenance or anything like that. So anything that I can save for in my sinking funds, I do that, because I don't want to use my emergency fund. That's 2 separate things. So it's like, yes, AP, you save, you put money in a lot of different buckets. Yes, I do. And it's helping me to be a good steward over my money, and to not have to ask people, you know, for help or for money. And I'm not saying if you do that, that there's something wrong with you. Sometimes you just do have to help, you know, ask for help. Been there, done that. But the best way that helps me is that I have different, you know, sinking funds, so that I don't have to ask, you know, or an emergency fund, so I don't have to ask for help. But those are some things that are, you know, that I do not use my emergency fund for. They're just not an emergency. Now, let's talk about what I do use my emergency fund for, which I really haven't had to use my emergency fund for, except for last year. I did have to, you know, tap into it. So I was in a car accident in July of last year, and my car got totaled. So of course I was brokenhearted because the car was paid for, but they totaled the car out and they gave me a check. And so I went to the dealership and found a used car, new to me, but used car, and with the check that they gave me, and I had to put, you know, some money from my emergency fund together, and I was able to drive off, you know, with a brand new car to me, even though it was used. So that was basically the last time I really had to touch my emergency fund. But in general, I would say that I would use my emergency fund for like high deductibles. So hypothetically, I do have homeowners insurance, I do have flood insurance, but you know, even with those, there is a deductible. And so if something was to occur, I do have the amount, I have money saved up to cover the deductible. So to me, that's very wise, because hypothetically, like, it's hurricane season where I am, and if something was to happen, I'd rather just pay the deductible as opposed to paying for a new house, you know. So I have money saved for that. So that would be one of the reasons why I would use my emergency fund. And God forbid, if I need another vehicle, I'll be able to pay cash for that, as opposed to like getting another car note, because I just don't believe in car notes. Now that I've crossed over that bridge of knowing that you can pay for a car in cash, I'm like, I'm not going back to that. So another reason why I would use my emergency fund is for like high medical expenses. So I guess that's part of the like the deductible as well. Knock on wood and praise the Lord, you know, me and my family have been very healthy. And we don't really have medical expenses, but just say, for instance, I do have health insurance, but I have a high deductible. And so, you know, in order for them to pay 100% of something, you have to pay that amount of that deductible. So I do have that amount of money saved into my emergency fund. You know, God forbid I have to use that. So that's another reason why I would use my emergency fund. Another reason why I would use my emergency fund is to say if an appliance broke down in my house and I needed a new one. Yeah, I mean, I could get the store credit, and I did do that with the refrigerator, because they give you what, 12 months pay no interest or whatever, and I'm very good about paying stuff off. Like, you're not gonna catch me having to pay interest because I wasn't paying attention to when the promotion ended. Oh no, boo, you getting paid before the promotion ended. So if you're disciplined like that, go ahead, get the store credit, and, you know, balance it out in your budget every paycheck, every month or whatnot. But if you have an appliance that breaks down, and say if your credit's not good, you can't get an appliance, whatever, you have money saved in your emergency fund, and you can use that to buy a new appliance. And then another reason for the emergency fund, oh my gosh, so last year, you all know what went on in the world, and so a lot of people lost their jobs, and an emergency fund will help to, you know, soften that blow, because you have a little cushion to help pay your bills, you know, if you came across having, you know, job loss or whatnot. So having an emergency fund up to 6 months, yeah, start off with $1,000, and that's just like, you know, a cushion if something was to happen. You put that, you know, in your savings account, but have at least 3 to 6 months saved up in an emergency fund, because you just never know with this life what can happen. So protect yourself, and be able to borrow from your own self as opposed to borrowing from people or from the bank or whatnot. So those are just some things that I wanted to share with you as regarding my emergency fund, how I fund my emergency fund, what it's used for and what it's not used for. I would love to hear from you if you have an emergency fund and what you use your emergency fund for. So drop some comments in the section below, and I'll respond to you. And also hit like if you enjoyed this video. I appreciate all the likes, I appreciate all the love. And lastly, if you haven't subscribed, please do so. I try to post videos weekly, and I would love for you to just come on this journey. Like I stated, I post videos about lifestyle, motivation, and money. So if any 3 of those topics appeal to you, then you have reached the right channel. And I'm your girl AP, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.